Hi, I'm Kelly Vaughn, and welcome to Inside Indy. I'm going to open up the show with a question for you, especially if you're a woman. I want you to listen closely to this question. Are you looking for love? Well, we have some help for you in finding love, and we're going to do that through a very interesting book that's out right now. It's called Dating Without a Daddy, a guide for fatherless women looking for love. But I believe this will help many, many people out there, whether you're fatherless or not. We're going to have a conversation right now with Dr. Marla Washington, the author of the book, Dating Without a Daddy. Welcome to the show, Marla.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for the opportunity to share my book with your audience.
All right. Wow. Where did this book come from? Dating Without a Daddy. What's the inspiration behind it?
This book came from my own personal testimony of being raised without my dad in the home and the challenges I encountered when I first started dating and how I overcame it, growing up fatherless.
Okay. Let's talk about your fatherless situation. Is your father still with us? What happened?
Yes.
Do you mind?
No, I don't mind sharing my story. My parents separated when I was in elementary school, I believe around 7 or 8 years old. And my mom had 3 daughters. And I guess in my father's mind that his daughters were fine because we had our mom. And that's the opinion of a lot of men who have fathers. So it's just not my dad's story. He was present when we needed him. He wasn't there on a daily basis. He paid child support, but everything was just kind of from a distance. And I didn't realize that until I got older, that he was the male model that I needed in my life to pursue romantic relationships.
The male model you needed in your life. So what do you think your father would have provided you that you didn't get by his absence?
That's a really great question. What I discovered through my research is that fathers, my dad would have provided me a safe place to be a woman. That's a little girl's first experience of being with the opposite sex, your dad. So dads validate you as a little girl. Dads tell you from their perspective what's appropriate to wear and not to wear. It's just a safe place to be. And I didn't have that experience growing up. And then I started seeking that validation through the men that I dated.
Oh, wow. Okay, so when you say seeking validation, what does that really mean?
To be loved, cherished, valued, someone, a male to say, I love you.
Okay.
That's validation and support for being a female.
So take us back to your teen years and when this started to happen and you were seeking this validation. How did that look? Can you interpret what you were doing at that time and how you were acting that out?
Well, let's go back a little bit. There are 2 major issues that fatherless women experience in seeking relationships. One, having not defining the qualities that they're looking for in a man.
Okay.
So I was looking at superficial things. Nice car, nice smile, handsome, those things that really don't matter in a relationship.
I kind of like those things, but that's okay. I'm okay with nice cars.
Seek that when you get older, not as a teenager. And then also setting unrealistic expectations. So for me, I let the media define what I should be looking for in a mate. And the media's definition of relationships is kind of romanticized. You know, the gifts, the flowers, the candy, the expensive trips. And so when I started dating at the age of 16, just with a few sketchy clues from my mother, he should be nice, Christian, and to be able to keep a roof over your head. That was just pretty much it. I mean, that's
I think a lot of people think that, which I think why your book would be so good for them, because when they can find out, okay, if it's not those three things, what am I supposed to be looking for?
Well, what we need to look for is character, their integrity. Can he hold a job? Does he want to be a husband? Does he want to be a head of a household? Not everyone is equipped to do so.
Okay.
So those are the things that I was looking for. And so for me, my experiences were pretty much, negative. The first guy that I went out with on a date, he turned out to be, he actually was on the news. I talk about this in the book, and I don't want to give away too many details, but he had robbed someone.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so that was my first date.
Now, he didn't rob someone while you were on the date. But...
Not while we were on the date, thank God for that. But he had robbed a home.
Oh, okay.
And while I was sitting there waiting for him to come by and pick me up, he missed the time that I could leave for my curfew, and he appeared on the news.
Get out.
He appeared on the news. That was my first date. And of course, my mother banned me from ever seeing him again. Right. But that was my first experience.
But you think about it, you didn't know, and I think that would be one of the questions that we have, if I speak for...
He was cute. He was cute.
He was cute. And he had a car.
He had a car.
But dating without a daddy, and again, because you could be 20 years old, you could be 50 years old, you could be 60 years old, because it just, when you grew up without a dad, that has already happened in your past. But part of the problem, I think women, the challenge they face is that we don't know anything about that person, and we assume certain things about them, or we think we know who we're dealing with. So how could you have played out that scenario with that young man years ago, if you had a chance to do it again? And how could you have gotten around or gotten away from that situation? Because sometimes you don't know till you know.
Correct. I'm quite sure, Kelly, if my father was in the home, he probably would have noticed some tendencies in his behavior as he was coming around. That my father probably would have said, baby, I'm going to end this right here. I don't want him back at our home. Again, because men know other men. Mothers don't. And I think that my dad could have prevented some of the negative dating choices that I made.
Oh, okay.
I know that without a doubt.
Really? Okay.
Sure. Because I've also interviewed women who grew up with their fathers in the home. And their fathers pick up on different types of clues that mothers don't necessarily know. And now my friends, in some situations, continue to see the man that maybe their dad wasn't too fond of, but eventually what their fathers would tell them, it would come to light.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's the big difference between the two. I didn't have that sounding board. I didn't have those conversations with my dad after a date. Daddy, what did you think about him? What are the pros? What are the cons? I didn't have that support system at all. Whatever kind of happened.
Okay, makes sense. Now, you mentioned some of the women who had fathers, and their situations were, their scenarios were different. They had that backbone, they had that overseer in their lives. And so I grew up with my dad in the home. Now, I will say this about him, and Dad, I love you. This is not I'm not cutting my dad down. But I don't remember him saying a whole lot about guys. A lot of times it might have been acted out in certain ways.
But he was watching.
He was watching, but what I really felt I needed was not what he saw, but I needed him to teach me about how, not all, but how some men can be. Now, he did say to me once about a gentleman that I was dating, and he said, I know what I'm talking about. I know men. I don't need you to know. I need you to tell me. And so I feel like even in my old age, there are things that I'm kind of actually angry about with him, because why didn't you tell me? this. It's kind of, it's a John Lennon song. Nobody knew there'd be days like these and things that I've gone through in my life. And I think, gosh, if somebody just told me a little bit more, I think I could have handled this differently.
Sure. Now, you have to remember your father probably grew up in a generation in which they were silent. And so he probably didn't communicate a lot, but trust me, he was watching. If you would have brought the wrong man home, he would have informed you. So he must have been okay with some of the gentlemen that you were dating.
Now, I will say this, because that he was just there, I didn't even bring a lot of men around because I was afraid that he would not like somebody. So in that...
You
yeah,
brought home the men that you knew would meet up to Dad's standards. See, you had that role model in your home. And so, and for women like you who are blessed to have a father in the home, this is the difference. Mothers teach their daughters how to be women. Fathers, through their example, teach you how to be treated by a man. So you had that example of how you should be treated because of the way your father probably handled you with care. That's the big difference. So you wouldn't have brought home a man that would not have passed the basic test. For someone like me who grew up fatherless, I didn't even have the basic standards because I didn't know what the image of a dad or a positive male role model in my life, I didn't know what that even looked like.
Okay.
Like bring in the groceries, kiss mom on the cheek, baby, I love you, how are you today? Tell me about your day. See, all those little things that you were receiving from your dad was validating you.
Okay, we're going to take a break.
Sure.
And we're going to talk more here about dating without a daddy.
Thank
with
you.
Dr. Marla Washington when we come back. And we're back here on Inside Indy, and we're talking to Dr. Marla Washington, who is the author of this phenomenal book, Dating Without a Daddy, a guide for fatherless women looking for love. And man, you got to get this book. But secondly, you got to hear the rest of this interview because we're getting ready to talk about requirements for dating. Requirements for dating. What's that mean?
Well, basically, Kelly, through my research, and I discuss it in the book, that fatherless women sometimes suffer from low self-esteem and depression, and they have this fear, or we have this fear of being alone. And as a result, that's not a good state of mind to be in when you're dating, because I do believe in the theory of laws of attraction. Wherever you are in life, that's who you're going to bring to you. And so what I discuss in my book is that fatherless women, when we date, we really need to practice patience. Sometimes when we meet a guy, we'll say, oh, he's the one, and we just go full steam ahead and not sit back and really observe his character. We just kind of rush into things.
Why do you think we do that?
Seeking that validation and love. You know, now we've found this person, he's asked me out, or if I've asked him out, we're in this relationship for 3 weeks, you know, things are going extremely well, and we just move just fast, quickly. And we have to sit back and be really patient. You have to wait for things to unfold in a relationship.
Oh, tell me about it. Yeah.
And so I recommend that women are patient, have a sound mind. You have to be emotionally healthy to date, because dating is very complex and challenging.
Yeah, as Fran Washington Daniels says, it's not for punks. It's not for dating's not.
Dating's
for punks.
not. It's not instinctual. It's a complex process.
Yeah.
And so I also recommend that active participation. Sometimes we just kind of get comfortable. Oh, I'll just have him come over here and we'll just kind of relax and watch movies. No, 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 no. You want to be out around family and friends and in the community because you want to see how he handles different situations. So you have to engage in activities, whether it's church or family or friends. I highly recommend that. And then discernment. You know, always follow, you know, your gut instinct. So if you think something is going wrong, or, you know, he's not being faithful, or he doesn't, you want someone to go to church and you really don't believe he's a Christian, you know, just kind of pay attention to all of those things. And the reason why being patient is highly recommended is because you have to make sure while you're dating, you validate people and you validate him. And so you have to make sure his words and behavior match.
And that takes time,
That
right?
takes time. That's why I say be patient.
It's kind of like a test period. And maybe if women thought of it more like, okay, I'm dating this guy, but this is a test period for him, and we're going to see if he makes the grade instead of making any decisions about him, processing any information. Because now, what about this, Dr. Washington? A lot of that happens with women when they are pulled in. They're not just sitting there making that decision. The guy is talking stuff.
Yes.
You're so beautiful. I love you. May not even mean it. Maybe it's the chase. Maybe it's I just want to have fun. Maybe I just want to get close to you physically. You know, what's the motive? But I don't think she's just deciding to. But she's absorbing that. That affects anybody. We all like to be complimented.
Sure.
Right?
And that's why I recommend being patient. Because over time, you'll see if his words and behavior match. And that's why patience is the key. Because if he tells you all those things, then in time, you should be able to observe that through his behavior. If you're not getting the behavior to match the words, that's when discernment comes in. And then that's when you need to probably reevaluate the relationship.
Then also, since we are on the show on Inside Indy, can I just turn the camera and tell them, just stop doing it, guys? Stop lying. How about
That's
that?
another book.
Yeah, that's another. Okay.
That's another book.
Stop lying by Dr.
Oh, if you want to talk about that issue, now I can discuss that issue with you. Research suggests that men and women lie equally.
You know I don't believe you, but go ahead.
Okay. Women lie to feel better. Men lie to look better. So you're not going to meet a guy who tells you, lazy, I don't believe in God. He's not going to tell you those things because he knows what his image should look like as a man. He knows that he should work, have a steady income coming in. A lot of them will tell you, I go to church. In reality, they don't, because they know what the image of a man looks like. What you're doing during the dating process, because dating is a fact-finding exhibition.
There you go.
That's what dating is.
Clap for that.
And so through this expedition is when you want to see if he is all of these things that he says he is. So if he's a Christian, he should go to church and then eventually invite you along. If he is able to keep a roof over his head through his steady job, then you should eventually see where he lives. He should be able to show you those things. And so you just have to remember that, ladies, when you're dating, men know what their image, they know what you expect of them. So your goal is to see if his words and his behavior match. Because no guy's gonna come up to you, Kelly, and say, well, you know what? I'm broke. I don't have this and that. I don't have a car. You might need to pick me up. In order to date you, he may have to borrow a car from a friend. He knows how to show up. He may have to borrow money. He will do all of those things to please you because he knows that you're not going to go out with someone who says, I'm broke, I don't have anything.
And actually, those lies I can deal with. I don't appreciate lies that they are said to get something out of you, which is just, it's being deceitful to try to win you over. And I don't know If
But
that's
that's
more
what-
about image, just saying
It's
I
about
love you when it's not
image.
really, it's not even time to say I love you.
Right.
But I just want to get you where I want to get you.
Right.
And that's just, to me, that's
But if
just
you-
manipulative type lies.
Sure, and I went out with someone who manipulated me, but if you practice patience and don't get your emotions involved, then that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I think that you said it right there. Don't let your emotions get involved. It's a test period. And I think the chase that they like so much, that drags that out, because if you're not emotionally involved, they haven't won you over. They
Right.
can't, because they have to work that much harder to try to convince you of the lie they just told, right?
And so they will eventually walk away to the next one.
How do you know you found the one?
How do you know? Well, when you set up your requirements, your realistic requirements, and the person who comes into your life matches what you're looking for. You know, he's kind, he's respectful, he meets your family, those kind of things. You'll know when he comes along. I knew when my husband came along.
You knew he was the one.
I knew that he was the one.
Okay.
And my husband and I were friends for about 18 years before we even dated. So he was part of my network that I encourage women who grew up without a father in a home. I encourage you to get a network, a support system. There's no substitute for a father. So the only thing that I know that you can realistically do is to create your own network and kind of have people that you can bounce ideas off. My husband, before we even dated, he was part of the network that I had. So sometimes I would call and ask him for advice. So is this right? You know, how do guys feel about this? And, you know, he was really honest with me. And then one day we just started dating.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people say that friendship thing is kind of important.
That's why you need to be patient. Friendship is the key. It's the foundation, I think, to a healthy relationship.
Okay. We're talking about Dating Without a Daddy by Dr. Marla Washington. He's not the one if, and I know we've just got about 3 minutes to go, and I know you've touched on some of that, but in the book, you probably, and that's in the book, you have a list of some things. So could you just give us a few of them?
Sure. He is not the one if, Kelly, if he is commitment leery. If you meet a man and he says, I'm not looking for a long-term relationship, and you are, he is not the one. If he does not want a commitment.
But I think we think that we can either make
Change
him
him.
commit, and I think in the back of my mind, even especially as a young woman, it's kind of like I have this attitude like, you know what you're supposed to do, but and that it is true. He knows what he's supposed to do, but that doesn't mean he's going to do it. And when I say that, I mean by what God says. You know what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
You know what's right. But knowing what's right, even if they know it, doesn't mean they're going to do it. Because if not, they're not going to be obedient to God. They're not going to be obedient to.
Right. If a man says that I'm not looking for a long-term relationship, I just want to kick it or have fun, you want a long-term relationship, he is not the one, because you have to trust that he knows his own mind, and you're not going to change it. You're not going to change it. He's not the one if he is having, if he's currently in a situation where he is dealing with addictions. You have to wait for him to move past that. And then also, which I'm kind of frustrated with this issue, he is not the one, ladies, if he is already married.
Yeah, good point. Good point. What is that about? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he is not the one. So,
Wait on your own.
Wait, yes, yes. Let him resolve that situation without you. You move on with your life.
Right.
And if you happen to come full circle again, that's a beautiful thing. But if he's in the middle of that situation, he is not the one.
Good point.
He
You're
is
right.
not
Yeah,
the
steer
one.
clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's rebounding and a lot of other things.
Yes.
So, where can we get the book?
You can go to my website, marlawashington.com, or you can go to amazon.com and purchase a copy of the book.
Okay. I think I'd like to have you come back the next time you're in Indianapolis, and maybe let's do this with a round table discussion of
Sure.
some other women, and they can kind of chime in and tell their stories, maybe some fatherless women and some women who have grown up with fathers in the home and just kind of, do an Oprah thing or something.
Sure,
Okay?
that sounds great. I would love to come back.
All
And
right.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Dr. Marla Washington, the author of Dating Without a Daddy, a guide for fatherless women looking for love. Get your copy. Thank you so much for joining us on
Thank
Inside
you.
Indy. And thank you for joining us. I'm Kelly Vaughn. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.